I'm excited. I'm here with Britt today. I'm just gonna hand over to you, Britt, to kind of open us up and get us started.
Yeah, so welcome to Coaching to Flourish Live. Raj and I are here today to talk about, we're going to tackle some wellness related things today because it's National Wellness Month. John couldn't be here, but he will be joining us again in the next couple weeks. So Raj and I are gonna take over sort of this Coaching to Flourish live for the next 2 weeks. So Raj, I know you had mentioned you had pulled together some questions that have come up for Wellness Month. So yeah, let's start with what you've got.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So this is quite timely, I think. We are in summer. For those of you going to be listening back, you might be listening back to this next year. It's August 2022. Yet, even though it is Wellness Month, I think this is actually probably a good reminder for all of us. I posted something on LinkedIn today around, what might you have forgotten over the last few months? What might have taken a back burner? What could be getting in the way? Often we start the new year, don't we, with all these great intentions. I think even if you don't make resolutions, I like to set intentions, but, I'm going to be healthier this year, or, I'm going to make sure I work out regularly, or I'm going to have more time off, or whatever that is. And then as the months go on, these things slip off, don't they? So I was just curious where people might be at in their kind of wellness journey. But Britt, when you think about wellness, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I like to think of wellness from a more holistic standpoint. So it's not just sort of the absence of illness as much as it's, that plus feeling healthy financially, feeling healthy in my career, feeling healthy in my relationships. So I kind of look at wellness as an embodiment of like every aspect of life and the health of your life. So one of the things that I think is really helpful when thinking about wellness and from that perspective is sort of the wheel that we use. So, assessing, doing a quick assessment of every aspect of our life. And, instead of maybe asking how satisfied are you, the question can be, how healthy do you feel this is in your life? And so when I think about wellness for myself or for my clients, that's something that I often will, comes up in my head is, thinking about that wheel and how we can use that to make that assessment.
That's a great point, isn't it? It's sometimes we can think about wellness through one lens or, well-being, yet there's so many different pieces and there's lots of different wheels out there. I love to use Wheel of Life, but there is a specific wellness wheel as well, isn't there, in the wellness coaching program? If you were to pick a wedge to focus on, Britt, what comes to mind for you?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think I would say, I don't know how I would describe this, but almost like just like personal organization, like having my mind organized. So I was, as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about, you were saying like, oh, the new year starts with great intentions. And I agree. And I was doing fantastic the first 6 weeks of this year. And then my husband and I got a puppy. And things have slowly started getting back to a routine, but I had nailed down I started before the new year, had this really good routine, and I felt like my thoughts and what I needed to do with my life were really organized. And, a puppy just adds a lot of chaos. And I always think it's funny to say chaos too, because that's actually what his name was before we renamed him, was Chaos. And it's true, he brought lots of chaos into our lives. And he's a great dog, but he's a German Shepherd, so he needs a lot of extra attention. And so I was thinking about how what you were saying, there's always something that gets in the way. And I think one of the things that I've been really struggling with and trying to work on is, recognizing that now, like the first month or two, yeah, like that's going to get in the way. But once we established a routine, I kind of fell off of keeping up with the routine I had made for myself. So if there was an aspect of wellness I would want to focus on, it would be sort of that mental sort of calm or organization that I think I had a lot of way back when and has since sort of fallen off. What about you? If you were thinking about a wedge, what would you sort of think about?
Well, this is interesting because you got me thinking, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, which part of the wedge would it be? You know, I had a look at a few different wheels because I was curious about what these wheels could look like. So, you know, we've got this emotional wellness, maybe it's environmental wellness, physical, intellectual wellness, occupational wellness. For me, I would say social wellness. That is the one that always falls off for me anyway. I live in the US, family is in the UK, moved here 7 years ago, and I've still got great friends that are over there, and I've moved here a couple of times. And not that I don't have great friends, but I do 100% of my work online. So work with people all over the world, and it's great, and I love it, and it means that I can reach more people. Yeah, I am also a bit of an introvert, and I think even after COVID, we have, with everything being closed down, probably traveled less, seen people less, and it's quite easy for me to become a little bit of a hermit. If I don't actively push myself to leave the house. And then I think in the work that we do as well, and I think a lot of coaches would probably resonate as well, you are holding space for people all the time, and you are listening all the time. And I love coaching. Actually, I'm a consultant, facilitator, and mentor as well. Coaching doesn't feel hard, yet you're talking to people all day, every day. So it's how do you create the distinction in a difference between relationships outside of work as well. So one, for me, I need to be more proactive and reaching out to friends and arranging things and going to see people. And the other thing is, sometimes I've had to joke with friends and people and say, I'm off duty. I'm not in coach mode.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on, I'm a big personality assessment person. I love personality assessments, and I started to take them regularly. And before COVID, I ranked really high on levels of extroversion. And after COVID, I rank a little bit higher now on levels of introversion. And it's just interesting how, like, being forced to be more introverted sort of, I can feel that my thinking has changed in how I approach wanting or not wanting to be social. And I am a little bit more protective with my time, similar to what you were just saying. So it makes sense that I think this brings up a good point that, there are going to be moments in our lives, things that happen in our lives. COVID is a big, huge example of a collective thing we all experience, but there are certainly smaller things that happen in our lives that might change how we approach our wellness, and what we need and don't need from each of those wedges.
And thinking about personality assessments or core motivation as well, I am a helper at the core. I've had perfectionist traits as well, yet I don't want to be a helper all the time. I don't want to be that in my spare time as well. And I've had to learn to set boundaries and think about, who am I outside of being a coach and my career and my work, which is so up there. It's my life's work. It's so important to me. Yet I don't always want to be in that space. And I think it's important as part of wellness that we surround ourselves with people that can lift us up and are there to listen to us. Otherwise, it's really easy to be in that role, isn't it? And I used to find myself, when I wasn't setting boundaries, I'd go to a coffee shop, it would be empty, and I'd be the only person sitting there, and the person who had a challenge or a problem or needed to talk to someone would find me. Like, I was a magnet.
Oh man.
And then, you can't serve from an empty vessel, can you?
No.
So how do you think coaching can support wellness, Britt?
That's a great question. I feel like a coach's role, regardless of niche, really kind of actually is wellness if you think about it. If you think about it from that holistic standpoint, right? So I niche down into as a writing coach, and I work exclusively with writers, but I have writers who come to sessions and it's clear that something else is going on in their life. There was a death in the family, or there was, a really exciting thing like a retirement, and there's other things that come up that people want to talk about. And I think that as a coach, it's my role to empower my clients, but also let them know, like, I'm celebrating with you and I'm grieving with you, and I'm here for you for every facet of your life, even though that we have this specific thing that we're working toward. Coaching, I think, should be mindful of supporting all of those areas. And I also think that coaching, a coach's role is to sort of be that, I want to say, like, extreme listening. And it sounds like a sport when you say it that way, but listening so intently that you're picking up on, is there another area of this person's life that does need attention and maybe isn't getting it right now? And how can I help support them and help them manage through something that maybe they wouldn't have normally brought to the table. So I think a coach's role is sort of to listen for the things that are both that the events in our life that, positive or negative, are making an impact or making a change to some extent that may need to be addressed in order for them to reach their goals or continue to move forward in whatever it is that they're meeting with you for. What do you think about that? What are some of your thoughts for wellness and coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I do mostly executive coaching, and I think Ashley and I were talking a few weeks back around, who you are is how you lead, or who you are is how you coach. And when we're running the leadership programs, or I'm working with somebody, it's not separating who they are. We're looking at the whole person. So all of these facets that make them who they are, and their behaviors and their habits. And we talked a bit about personality types just now, Britt. All of the components that may impact actually how they show up. But some of the things that come up also in the coaching, in the programs, is around role modeling, especially when we talk about organizational development or creating a culture of value or inclusion and belonging. And again, we hear how employees are burnt out, or they're working from home since the pandemic and they work long hours, and there's no distinction between when work starts and when work ends. So often I might be working with an individual where we're looking at, who do you need to be, or who do you want to be as a leader, or what is the culture you're creating? What is your role in? Are you sending emails out really late at night? And then what is the messaging there to others? So, in that whole wellness realm, we may be looking at culture, assumptions, perspectives. What beliefs then do your staff or employees hold in terms of expectations?
Yeah, that's an excellent, you're right. Like, so I was talking about, like, regardless of niche, but you're talking about even within the niche, there's it's multifaceted. And so, how are you building wellness for yourself and those you work with in an executive space, or yourself? I could even probably go as far as, like, wellness for characters in fiction books. Like, how are you building that into your storyline? So yeah, I think that's a really fun way to think about it, and to understand that, while not every, it's not necessarily the job of every coach to be wellness specific trained, but to understand that a coach does contribute to the wellness of their clients. I actually just had a client say to me recently that, they feel better, they're doing better since having worked with me. And it's been very brief that we've worked together, but like understanding and having that knowledge that, okay, I'm a part of this person's life now, even if I'm only meeting with them an hour a week. That's the power of coaching. And so it's important that we're mindful, the quote, with great power comes great responsibility comes to mind. But it's true, like if we're in a place where we're supposed to be helping to build their empowerment and their agency and all those things, like we're also building their wellness. And so we need to be, at least knowledgeable to a certain extent of how we can contribute to that.
What other tools do you think could be valuable in a coaching setting around this topic?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at coaching from a holistic perspective, just about any coaching tool, I think, can be particularly helpful. We have the perspective tool to talk about perspectives. With the clients that I work with, when I think about wellness in my clients, I often think about like the big things that come up for my clients that when they're not feeling well, so to speak, is, self-doubt, lack of confidence, feeling like not enoughness in their writing. So inner critic, future self, things like that. But I will say, I think this is just completely my opinion, not necessarily based on research, which I typically like to talk about. But I do feel like from a wellness perspective, visualization techniques can be really, really helpful. Whether that be a visualization technique built around calmness and mindfulness, all the way up to a visualization technique to take the future self and, get somebody out of their present mindset and all the frustrations that they're dealing with in the moment, and say, okay, well, 10 years from now, you've fixed all of this stuff and you're now in a much better space. Now let's start talking about, what does that look like? Paint the picture and then help them build toward that. So I think those are some of the ones that, the visualization techniques to me feel like they can be a really great playground for helping a client build their wellness. What about you? What are some tools that you would think are helpful from a wellness perspective?
I would agree with the ones that you're talking about. I do use mindfulness a lot in my practices and in exec coaching as well. So often people are surprised by that, but I actually get asked to get people grounded at the beginning of even I did some presentations earlier this year, and it's a data analytics company, and it was something really new. We were doing coaching there. We were looking at growth mindset, and leadership starts with self. And actually, I was leading a cocktail panel, and people were like, oh, that grounding thing that you do, can we ask you to get everyone grounded? So kind of just holding that space, part of my brand as well. It's a bit of bringing the yin and yang together, the strategic mind and logic and the strategy pieces, but how do we bring those together with emotional fitness, with being still and the mindfulness. And I think one of the blessings to come out of the pandemic really were people recognized the opportunity to be still and look after themselves. And I like to talk about, we've got something called the pause series that we're doing in my business, and some of that comes from even the benefits of pausing in a conversation or pausing in coaching. And if I think about myself as a leader, I know that my whole energy can be disrupted, or the way I show up or how productive I am, just right from how I start my day in the morning. I don't have my phone plugged in my room. both my husband and I don't have our phones near us at bedtime. They're actually plugged in the laundry room, so which you have to walk to get to the phone. So little things like not starting the day with, for me, just watching the news or opening the phone and looking at all the emails that have come in, anything that's gonna, there's like a ripple effect or a domino effect of some of the things that you might not have left behind the day before. And that kind of sets us up. And then how do we show up for others when we're kind of agitated or overwhelmed or just a little bit worked on?
Yeah, I think everything that you're saying, all of this really ties well to wellness, because I think sometimes people see wellness as, physical health, mental health, diet, nutrition, sleep. But we don't think about those little decisions that you're talking about that create wellness. What do you do with your phone? That's part of my mental organization is I've become a little bit more attached to my phone. And so I don't like that. So I've been practicing. I use my phone as a baby monitor for my puppy right now. So I need it at night, but I do I'll put my phone in my bedroom while I'm working during the day. So it's not a distraction during my work day. But it's those little decisions that I hadn't, honestly, until you said that, I hadn't thought about. But how does that contribute to your wellness? We make hundreds, if not, well, thousands is probably a lot, but hundreds of decisions every day. So how can we make sure that the decisions that we're making, that even the smallest ones, are contributing to our wellness? And so something as simple as starting your day on the right foot, well, what does it look like at night then to make sure you set yourself up for a morning that gives you that headspace? And then what do you need to do in the morning to set yourself up to have an effective evening routine? And, there's a cyclical process that happens there. It's all these little tiny decisions that lead to that. And I think that is the beauty of sort of where coaching can help in with developing systems. So now when you think about tools, a systems tool can be really effective when you think about those tiny things that need to be done throughout the day in order to build more of a wellness mindset.
Yeah. And you're just reminding me as well of, I remember a while back getting into a habit of, I'm not on a lot of mainstream social media, but I love TikTok and I love watching the videos and, some of the funny ones, or I learn a lot from it. And a while back, I found myself was getting into a habit of just scrolling through at certain times, like having a break and scrolling through, or at nighttime before I was going to bed. And as I was exploring this with my own coach, actually what I realized was I needed to find a way to disconnect. My coach helped me to explore that. And actually, why did I need a way to disconnect? Because I was neglecting really important pieces of my wellness. And some of the times I was running on low in terms of, if we think of ourselves with that battery, because I wasn't getting the opportunity to recharge, and I had fallen back into, which some of this is in line with my values, and values work for us and sometimes they work against us, or I can be a bit of a workaholic. I've said this before, people have heard it. Getting into overly indulged in that side of things, and not enough space and not enough time to be still. I actually have a coffee table book that's called Nixon, and it's The Art of Doing Nothing, as a reminder to just sit and do nothing.
I love that. Yeah, it's a challenge for those of us who have, especially there's a lot of coaches out there who are coaches and have a full-time job. And, some of the coaches out there that are full-time coaches or have a coaching practice, a full-time job, and children. Like, I have a dog and I can imagine trying to do it with children. So, you're right though, like that mind, and especially for women, there's a lot of data out there that says that, women tend to be a little bit better at multitasking because we're sort of programmed to do a lot of things and have a lot of things in our minds. And so definitely thinking about the way that we can disconnect and find some more inner peace, that calmness, that mindfulness that you were talking about earlier, you know, that's going to play a really big part in mindful or in wellness and developing a more well-rounded feeling of being well.
I can never believe how quick this time goes. We've got like 2 minutes left. So how would you like to wrap this up, Britt? Like, what words are coming to mind for you?
You know, it's funny, every time we do this, Raj, I'm always like, man, I feel like I walk away with, even though it's not a coaching session, I feel like I walk away with like action steps, you know? So I think for me, what's coming to mind is like journaling about like, what are the little things that make a big impact on your wellness? And just sitting with that question for a little while and maybe journaling about it a little bit to think about what does that mean, and encouraging everyone who's watching or who will watch to do the same. Because I think, you know, the more we talk about these little decisions, I feel like that's something that plays a bigger role than we look at it as playing.
Yeah, me too. I've got some actions. So thanks, Britt. I'm actually going to revisit my wellness wheel. I might not be able to help myself. I might go and like create a wellness wheel too. So I might do that because I'm like, oh, I don't actually, I've got a wheel of life, got a leadership wheel, but this is a good opportunity to perhaps create that wellness wheel. And you gave me some inspiration on that, Britt. And I'm going to, once I have done that, I'm actually going to score myself. And I think there's probably some places where I can celebrate and have some gratitude. And there are definitely some places that I think it's time to see how I take that score up a bit.
There you go. I love that. How do you want to be accountable to that?
I think I'm going to see you next week, aren't I? So.
All right. And I'll do the journaling for next week too. And we can check in at the beginning.
Absolutely. We will hold each other accountable, and, you know, and everyone else, let us know in the chat, message us. I think it's, let us know what is something that you're going to do for yourself around wellness in the next week.
I love that. Yeah. Let us know. We want to hear from you. Thank you all for being here with us today. It's been wonderful, Raj. Thank you as always. It's wonderful to have a chat with you. I'll see you next week, and hopefully everyone else who is here next week as well. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Bye.